All right, next in our series on just insights into jobs that people may know about, but not really understand what goes on behind the scenes. We're going to be talking to a professional executive coach, Gary Payne. And Gary is a partner with Odgers Berntson, and they are an executive search firm, but Gary is focused on leadership development, in other words, coaching. Is that a fair description?
Yes,
Good.
that's perfect.
Good. All right. So, coaching is a big deal now, and you see a lot of people doing it. I mean, it's all over the place. And it's kind of funny. I see everybody from, young influencers that consider themselves kind of life coaches to people like you that are doing it more on the executive side. But, what exactly is a coach? What do you do?
Yeah, Coach. That is a interesting observation you had because there are a lot of different varieties of coaches out there. What I do is leadership and executive development. Leadership development is basically. I think a lot of the creation of the coaching business has really occurred over the last five to 10 years as the world has the complexity of the world, uncertainty, volatility of the world, the VUCA world that we're living in has created a lot of challenges for leaders to make sure that they show up the right way. The advent of emotional intelligence and the aspect of mindset and how important that is on developing your leadership and individuals' leadership capability. Bottom line is our job is to help an individual show up with the best version of themselves and the type of leader that they want to be. And so our job is to do what we can do in our power to help them become their leadership best self. Bottom line.
All right. So maybe a good place to start then would be kind of to walk through how you got there, because I know just from being in the work world for a while, you develop what I call an asset stack. You build skills, experiences, and contacts that are going to help you when you get to that ultimate place. So I know your background is a little varied from sales and executive search to where you are today. So maybe kind of walk us through how you got to this point and the skills that you brought to the table that made you a good fit for it.
Yeah, you're right. My background, I mean, the first 25 years of my career was mostly sales and marketing type of roles that I had. And then I promoted up into leadership positions within sales organizations and ultimately became a CEO of a private equity-backed industrial services company in Houston. And all of those experiences, it's funny, the experience of transitioning from an individual contributor sales rep into that leadership sales management role was a very interesting transition for me. And I at the time, I wasn't familiar with, the transition from an individual contributor to a leader and what that entailed. And as I've gotten further along in my coaching career, that's a key area, the individual contributor to the leader. And then when I became a first-time CEO and the experiences that I had there, I did not have a coach during that 7-year stint in my career. Just all of the aspects of fear and anxiety and being seen in a spotlight and just all of those emotions that come into play. The aspect of leading teams, developing teams, driving vision, and all of those things. None of that stuff was natural to me, and it was almost I was making it up as I went as a coach or as an executive in those roles. And it was a struggle. I came out of it fairly successful out of that extent, being a CEO, but funny enough, one of the things that I realized in being a CEO and coming out and selling my company is I realized I didn't want to be a CEO anymore. Right. When I got into executive search and the opportunity to serve CEOs, and then now into the coaching field, which I've been doing for about the last 10 years.
Okay. And I want to make it clear to the people that watch this, coaching is not training. You're
No,
not doing a training program. You're helping them kind of, get their own unique capabilities aligned with what their responsibilities and objectives are. But
exactly.
I think one of the things there that I'd like your insight into, you come in with a wealth of experience, and I know you enjoy working with people like this, and that has positioned you well to have credibility with these people, as a coach. But what about somebody that's kind of earlier in their career and they want to coach? You
Yeah.
know, is there hope for them, or is it really not something that they can pursue until they've amassed kind of, a significant portion of a career's experience?
No, there's different levels for me. I from my personal experience, the ability to coach CEOs has been helped significantly by the fact that I was a CEO, and I've worked with CEOs for many years throughout my career, especially being a CEO and in the executive search space. And so that's been fairly natural for me to deal with executives and those type of individuals. So that really helps. A lot of coaches come into it, however, more from a human resources perspective,
Okay.
and they come in and they are able to be more focused on things like emotional intelligence, which I do a lot of emotional intelligence work, but a lot of more of the HR oriented coaches, which are very, very, very effective coaches. They can bring a different mindset and a different perspective to a client. But there are individuals that are life coaches, that are coaches in the exercise space, wellness coaches.
Right.
There's different levels of experience, and what our job is to help an individual develop an intention, develop a goal, and then get there. How do we get there? How do we make
Okay.
sure that we stay on course as we go through the entire process? So prior experience is a big help, but it really is, what is your interest? What's your passion
Okay.
as a coach?
Now, did you go through training of some kind so that you had a process to follow that you knew would be, something workable?
Really, it's ongoing. One of the lessons I learned at the very beginning from my coach, who was coaching me to be a coach, is that you never stop the process of developing.
Okay.
Leadership development, developing yourself as a coach, is a lifelong endeavor. It's not an event. You don't get there. And so the credentialing process, I did go through that certification, learn how to, what is the difference between a coach and a consultant, learning those intricacies about it. And then obviously learning how to be, just learn the tools of the trade. I'm building up new tool sets, new tools that I can bring to my clients. And it's just been an ongoing process. But
Okay.
honestly, the person that has probably been impacted the most through the work that I do is me. The focus of self as coach, is a big part of this. A lot of the emotional intelligence work and all of the aspects of the things that I do in my coaching, typically I learn from
Yeah.
experience in many
Well, and
ways.
it's kind of funny. We have no problem whatsoever with a coach relative to athletics. So anybody that grew up
Oh,
in the world of athletics recognizes the importance of having, a coach, and a coach that knows you specifically and can help you with whatever your individual objectives are.
yeah.
As soon as we get away from sports, we start to wind up thinking, I think, well, I have a boss. And I think that may be where young people come in. They say, well, how could I possibly need a coach when I've only been in the working world for a couple of years? I have a boss and they're telling me what to do and they're mentoring me and they're, all those things. Maybe you could elaborate on where does that line get drawn, and the value, how does the value of a coach step in a situation like that?
Well, the superior subordinate relationship is an interesting one because the superior is responsible for setting accountability and ensuring that individual is performing according to expectations. While you're going through that entire process of the do aspect of it, it's interesting. Work is kind of we plan, we do, and we reflect. Plan, do, review. I like the term reflection better than review.
Right.
And what the coaching is a lot of reflection in order to plan to make sure that you're working on the things that are most important and that you're showing up with your in your best self.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting misnomers or misunderstandings about coaching is that we are here to fix a problem, a performance problem. That's not what our job is. Our job is not to fix performance problems. Our job is to take A players and help them to achieve the next step in their career, to help them to transform and achieve strategic objectives as they go through their day-to-day work life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's interesting, I think about, my own sales career. I had a lot of bosses that I'm sure thought of themselves as coaches, but the platitudes of like make more calls and call higher in the organization, are pretty empty. It's like, hey, if you're going to coach me, really coach me, tell me, what specific things I need to do to work on and how do I get to my objectives. So,
well, it's interesting. One of the things that I do for leaders, I mean, typically they have, many direct reports and sometimes many teams underneath them at different levels is to how can you show up as a coach and not necessarily as a boss? And how can you bring that coaching philosophy and mentality such that you can drive intentionally the act of reflection in order to make sure that we're giving our very best effort in the day that we're in the work that we do towards the objectives that we're adhering to. What ends up happening as in life and in our jobs is we focus on the do aspect of our work, and a lot of times we get into chaos. And we get into siloed situations within organizations, and there's lack of collaboration, and we get off course. And so that reflection process is so important. And if a leader can bring reflection and coaching into their management style, that's one of the goals that I have in coaching leaders is how can you incorporate what I do into your leadership approach in order to help your people develop? Right. And so it really is implementing that culture, that coaching culture throughout the organization. I consider that one of the key things that I want to do for a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. So before you got into this, I'm sure you had some preconceptions about what it would be like.
Yeah.
What were some of the preconceptions that were wrong?
Well, a lot of I did have a few experiences where a lot of coaches were focused in on how does that make you feel? What are the emotions affected with that? And those are all good questions, but what coaching is not is giving advice. Our job is to ask the right questions so that the individual can make the changes necessary and have insight into the changes that are necessary to transform their leadership development as they go forward. If I tell you what to do, it's very much different than if we get into a process where you come to your own conclusion about what you should do, and then you can put that into practice more effectively. It's not a consulting relationship; it's a coaching relationship.
Right. So what do you think? Were some of the personal attributes that you brought to the party that have made you good at this?
I honestly, I think that the awareness of my own personal development has been a big part of that. I referred earlier to the transition from individual contributor to manager, and how I struggled in that role when I became a sales manager many years ago from an individual contributor. And, so really understanding the awareness and the challenges that I faced in my career have been very impactful. So really that aspect of self-awareness and being able to apply that awareness and to be able to read others. Another is that is for me it's really having a strong purpose. I mean, my feeling is that the biggest problem we have in our world today is poor leadership. And it is in every, I mean, we can talk about it
Hmm.
ad nauseum in politics, obviously, but in every realm of society, leadership is, in my opinion, substandard. And so my purpose is to really drive, is to try to make a difference in that problem, just one person at a time. And because I believe it's the biggest problem we have in the world today is
Okay.
lack of quality leaders.
So if somebody was considering this, what personality traits might you think this probably isn't the right path for you?
If you tend to be a teller, not a questioner. If your primary focus is to try to always have the right answer
Hmm.
for everything. A curious spirit is really probably the number one trait. If I think back to your earlier question, curious spirit is
Okay.
probably one of the strongest traits to have. And a lot of people really struggle with having that curious spirit of really wanting to get into reflection
Right. Right.
and that type of thing. So
And it's interesting that you say that again, because I think, coming from a sales background, um, early career sellers, they tend to talk more and they'll ask questions, but every question is really just a tee up to get them to a point where they get to tell something,
yeah,
about their product or solution. As they get higher into their sales career, they learn, I've got to really peel this onion back. I can't just go one layer deep. I've got to ask, hey, when was the last time this happened? Who was responsible for it? How did the team react when it happened? Who made the decision? How's that decision viewed today? I mean, when you really start digging in and start to ask some uncomfortable questions, and that's I think the mark of a great salesperson. They're totally comfortable with having everybody else uncomfortable. And so they're
yeah,
able to ask those questions that can sting a little bit, and people don't always want to answer those. But when they
yeah,
do, you come out with such clarity about the situation that you're much more effective in providing a solution for it. And it sounds
yeah.
like, leadership development coaching, executive coaching, getting above that ground floor has that same knack that you've got to be able to ask some questions that are really getting people to probe and uncover things that they may really not want to talk about. Is that fair assessment?
I love that, John. And you brought up listening because through my own personal development, and this is something that I've worked on ad nauseum for my entire career. If I really analyze and reflect on my personal listening, and if I ask myself, do I listen to respond or to understand? Right? Which side of that spectrum am I on? Right? If I'm really listening to understand you, right, I'm not worried about my response. In fact, I would say I oftentimes try to listen in order to have the smartest response or the smartest reaction that somebody had to be perceived as intelligent, as opposed to me really understanding what it is that you're trying to say and what is the real pain point and the need that you have. And that's, in sales,
Right.
the best sale you and I both know the best salespeople are the ones that are able to get to that pain point as quickly
Oh
as
yeah.
possible or as easily as possible, and then figure out and then you've developed that relationship and that trust with the client that the solution just kind of follows right on.
Yeah.
So
One of my business notebooks that I keep, just random notes in on the front of it is, the salesperson that best understands the customer's pain always wins because they're seen as that
that's right.
trusted advisor.
That's right.
So interesting. Okay. Um, so again, people that are watching this are considering exploring a career in coaching. paint the picture for me what compensation looks like. Is it an hourly thing? Is it a fixed fee? Is it maybe if you're with a large company, they pay you a salary to do what you do? And what could an entry level person expect, to make in a role like that?
Yeah, there's a wide range for that. The aspect of the work that I do is not hourly based. The work that I do is typically a monthly or a fixed fee over a specific time frame, and that's what we bill. Is based off of that fixed fee, but it is also towards specific objectives, specific development results that we're looking to achieve. A lot of coaches, I would say 90% of coaches that are life coaches and wellness coaches and those type of coaches are more hourly based. And
Okay.
those hourly fees can go anywhere from $50 an hour to couple of $1,000 an hour, depending upon the individual or the coaching individual. But typically, my fees are a monthly fee set for a specific time frame. Typically, 6-month engagements with typically leadership development coaching. The change that is needed to be implemented, it usually takes between 6 months and a year to really get the full effect of the coaching and the aspect of the work that we do together.
Okay. And you mentioned something that's just prompted another question, because we talked about that you went through training to get certified, but you also seem to have a clear understanding of what coaches in a variety of arenas and at various levels do. Did you, when you were going through your certification and were, I'm sure, attending classes or sessions or workshops or whatever it was, were there all types of coaches, or was everybody kind of in the same mold?
The initial pieces of the initial aspects of the coaching, there was all sorts of coaches involved in that. And I've also gotten in other mastermind groups of coaches that are in other fields besides executive and leadership development, which is what I do. And so I, just naturally in the overall networking of people in my field, I get access to a lot of different types of coaches, and so that's fairly common.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I would imagine that in those conversations, you can learn things that
Oh,
are applicable from anybody. If they've got a good idea and it works, then
well, I mean, think about your life and your career, John. I mean, your personal life affects your business life
yeah.
and vice versa. I like to coach more in like personal and business. No, this is life. And we got to fit all aspects of our life into our life. And so, aspects of wellness, it's critical for a senior leader. You have to have a high degree of wellness. So we'll get into aspect. I mean, I'm not diving deep into wellness programs, but aspects of changes in wellness that an individual or a goal that somebody would
Yeah.
have for a wellness situation. How can we get on course to make that happen and ensure that you can achieve that objective?
Hey, you
So
can't, you
a
can't,
lot of coaching bleeds into other
right. Yeah.
fields. Yeah.
You can't be an effective leader if you're sick all the time.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
You got it.
So,
You got it.
um, when you look at your industry, and I'm sure you've seen people that are kind of at like a really pinnacle level and people
Oh,
that
yeah.
really are struggling, what's the difference that you see there? What makes somebody a really kind of a top performer as a coach and somebody who really just is kind of muddling along?
I've gotten involved over the last 6 months or so with a mastermind group that's led by a prominent leadership development coach that every leadership development coach would know this person's name. And one of the things that has been a huge benefit is to watch him coach. And he is able to accomplish incredible things in what I would take an hour session he can do it in 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
He's my coach right now, and the coaching sessions that he schedules with me, 15 minutes.
That's
And
outstanding.
the work that we do in that 15 minutes is incredible. And I schedule an hour and think that we're going to get a lot done in that hour.
Yeah.
And so now the goal is how can I accomplish what I did in that hour into this. That's how we get to good to great.
Right.
Right. There's an aspect of good to great coaching that you develop over your career, and the only way you can do that is to experience it and watch and see
Yeah.
others, and allow them to coach you. I
Right.
need
Right.
to be
Well,
coachable in order to be a good coach.
yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of funny. The image that pops into my head is the golf instructor, the
Mhm.
coach that's able to go out there and, one golf coach
Right
looks
off the
at a
bat.
swing and says, you need to do this. And another golf coach has to sit there and tape and watch and evaluate for
Yeah,
an hour before they can figure out, oh, wait, I see this. You've rolled your grip over or something like that. That's
exactly.
interesting.
Yeah, and it's amazing how I can start off with a problem or an issue that I want to discuss about, and the real solution is something almost completely unrelated that caused that problem in the first place. It's amazing how a good coach can really find where your real pain is,
Hmm.
right, and where the real need for the development would be.
So I'm going to get into the weeds just a little bit here, but I want people to have kind of a complete picture. Um, Virtually all of your work is done either, video conference call
Just
or
like this,
telephone.
just like this, just like this.
And let's say that you have a 6-month engagement with somebody. I would imagine your first session is to understand, where they are today, where they want to go, and what they see as the barriers to themselves getting there. Do you develop a plan that covers that whole 6 months, or do you develop a plan just for the next few calls, not knowing where they're going to lead you? Kind of what's the track that things take?
Yeah, we always start every engagement with very, very specific objectives and things that the individual wants to accomplish around their leadership. It could be, improve their emotional intelligence. It could be how can they develop their team. It could be how can I drive this growth strategy or approach in my organization. So everything is very specific. We almost always start off with some form of an assessment as well, in order to uncover some of the mindset things. I like one of the big aspects of my coaching that I focus a lot of attention on is emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
And there's several really good emotional intelligence assessments out there. And so really try to start off with some assessment work to help to raise the awareness for the individual, as well as for me, as to
Hmm.
the areas that we can work on from that can help their development going forward.
Okay. And you mentioned one thing though, that they may have, let's say, a strategy that they want to implement. Just from my experience, that leads me to that world of consulting. How do
Yeah.
strategy implementation? So how do you impact that versus, the consulting team that comes in and says, well, this is what we're seeing and this is how you need to do this. And our experience has been to do these things.
Yeah, that's I do not I am not a consultant that helps that writes strategy, right? I'm going to be asking the questions of the executive that can help them to determine what their strategy should be.
Okay.
Where now what I do get involved in quite a bit is culture setting and developing things like, for example, I mentioned earlier, a coaching culture within an organization, right? How do we develop team effectiveness at the executive leadership team? But then, oh, by the way, how do we proliferate that throughout all of the teams, kind of the team of teams approach? Stanley
Okay.
McChrystal's book, Team of Teams. How do we drive that team of teams approach so that team effective, that's part of strategy, culture development, and team effectiveness and things like that. So really that aspect of it, how to go and, manufacture your widget more effectively or more productively is well outside. Identifying that that's a need is not,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So, every job, even when it's fun, is going to have times where it's not fun. So when does it suck?
When the individual is uncoachable, and there's a big balance I have on the uncoachable. The ones that need coaching the most are the ones that are typically uncoachable. And so I do not take, and I do know a lot of coaches that won't take somebody they deem an uncoachable individual. I'll take somebody, but if I don't see progress being made, I've got to cut that off, because I can't accept the money for an individual if I'm not bringing impact to what they do. So probably the biggest struggle is that if I can't break somebody out of that being uncoachable and willing to admit the things that they need to work on, that's when I struggle the most, is when I see lack of progress.
It's just disappointment.
Yeah, lack of progress.
So let me
again, in service to that purpose of really making a difference in the leadership crises that I feel like we have.
And nobody likes to lose a client. I mean, that's how we make money. So I want to put just a little more flesh on that same idea. Let's take somebody that's like a fitness coach, okay, or a wellness coach. And they're telling this person, all right, you need to change your diet in these ways, and you need to implement an exercise plan that does this. And I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to be asking you about whether or not you did these things. You can be honest with me, or you don't have to be. You can certainly make things up, but you will know. If they're not following the plan, at what point do you determine they're uncoachable versus, the diet is just such an overwhelming, what's the right word? It just beckons to them. They don't have their willpower, just isn't there,
So what do we do if a client's not is not doing what they say they're going to do, right?
Yeah.
The question is that you have to be able to ask the tough questions. Are you sure you're committed to making this happen? Right.
Right.
Are there other approaches that we could take that would get us to the goal of becoming, more fit, or whatever the objectives may be? What is it going to take to get you to do the things that you want to do? And if we go through that, and several sessions, a month or two goes on, and the individual is not making that progress, there's no reason to keep the coaching on, because the individual is not serious about wanting to make the change.
Well, and it sounds like there's also, as you're putting a box around your responsibility, something that falls outside that box is motivation. Yeah. You can work with their motivation, but if they really don't have motivation that they're willing to tap into and make a priority, you can't force that to happen.
What ends up happening is a lot of what you're talking about there is procrastination and not following through on things that an individual knows that they need to do. That is always a sign of a deeper issue. Always.
Okay.
And eventually it can get down to procrastination. It can show that we have a self-regard issue. It can show that we have all these aspects of different components of emotional intelligence. Procrastination and not doing the things that we know we need to do. It could be we have stress management issues. We have a lack of self-awareness, or whatever it may be. And so those type of things are almost always indicative of a deeper problem or a deeper issue that the individual needs to face. And it's our job to get to those issues.
Okay.
Right.
That's
And to
super
use the
interesting. I mean,
questioning.
it's
Yeah.
almost like a psychology role
It,
in it.
it does. And in fact, emotional intelligence coaching and the neuroscience aspect of emotional intelligence, which is one thing that if I were to say that what has been the most positive impact of me undertaking that career, it has helped me to develop my emotional intelligence. I never worked on my emotional intelligence until I became a coach 10 years ago.
Okay.
Ever. And the biggest positive impact on me has been my own emotional intelligence development and the rewiring of my brain that I'm now trying to focus on, so that when I'm triggered, I respond the way I want to respond, as opposed to react with emotion, which is the way I've lived my life for so many years.
Right. All right. Hey, one last question, Gary. I really
Yeah,
appreciate your taking time to do this. So if
it's been
somebody
great. Thank you,
decided
John.
that they wanted to become a coach, and maybe it can't happen today, maybe it has to happen a couple of jobs later as they build out their asset stack, but what would be your recommendation to say, look, if you want to explore these are the best steps you can take now?
I meet with a lot of folks that are younger, that are interested in the coaching field, and I would recommend you do what they do, and that is network. Intentionally network with the type of individuals and the type of coaches that you think you may have interest in, and learn about their business. I can't think of one of the things about coaches is that they have a desire to help people. They really do. It's one of the blessings of being a coach, is getting to know other coaches and these folks that have this desire to help each other. I can almost guarantee you that if an individual is interested in coaching and they reach out to coaches and just to network and learn about what they do, they're going to get a response, a high percentage response to those reach outs.
Okay. And then at what point should they start exploring like the certification process that you went through?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody were to reach out to me, I mean, that would be part of the process of what I could tell them as far as how they could go about doing that. It's relatively easy. They could also just Google it and find coaching certification programs all over the place. But coaches like me can recommend the ones that we know are good ones.
Good deal. Okay. Well, Gary, again, I really appreciate it. Folks, if you're watching this, obviously hit the like and subscribe button. That helps pop the channel to the top of the list. And look for more videos like this where we're talking to people that have really interesting careers. Gary, thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it very much.
Yep.